Are we in?
We're in.
We're in. We're in. Okay, so welcome to. Are we on episode 7 already? Episode 7 of Camera and Flask. And joining this evening as ever, and we've managed to make every episode, all three of us so far. So we'll start over on the far west. Mr. Jem Schofield of the C47. Introduce yourself. Say good evening.
Here I am. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Here I am. Well, Jem here, episode 7, coming to you from no longer sunny Oregon. It has begun. So the rainy season officially arrived today, just in time for our holiday festivities. And welcome everybody. See some familiar faces here and hopefully some new faces, some new people coming to hang out at the Camera and Flask pub. And I move it over to our fine friend in the middle of the United States of America, Mr. Caleb Pike. A little introduction.
Hey guys, how we doing? Caleb from DSLR Video Shooter. Yeah, Midwest, we're all settled in for a nice turkey day, getting everything all prepped and ready for overindulgence. So yeah, doing well.
And I'd like to say to Spang, you say, finally caught you live. So welcome to the live show. I'm sure I'm saying that incorrectly, but it looks like Spang to me. So that's the way I'm going to say it. Ben, shall we start with the most important part of every show right now? And I'll let you take that. Yep.
All right. So this applies to everyone watching as well. Let us know what you're drinking. This is the segment where we all pour ourselves a wee dram or a glass of beer or a glass of wine, whatever it is. And Jem, let's start with you. Surprises. What have you got?
Okay. Now, before I do this, I do want to tell everybody that because of this thing called family, we are going to try as hard as we can. In fact, today we will absolutely do it, to keep the show to an hour. So what we'll do is we'll go for about 45 minutes every week. And then as we get into that final 15 minutes, even though we will be fielding questions as we go, that'll be where we really jump into answering more questions with everybody who's hanging out. Again, we'll be doing it all along. We welcome questions about this week's topic and every other topic that you want to talk about that's related to drinking and production. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving, gobble gobble, in the United States. So I would be remiss not to have a whiskey with an E. And so I have to have a bourbon, which is, beer is not American. It is consumed by many Americans and Canadians and people all over the world. But bourbon is a distinctly American drink. So I'm going to have a Booker's today, which is sort of Jim Beam's top bourbon. It's really, I'm not a bourbon person, even though I will drink it, of course, but I really do like Booker's. And it is basically 2 bottles in one. This particular bourbon here, because every bottle is different, is 128.1 proof. So I will cut that with a little bit of water. I'm not really an ice person, but I will definitely give it a little bit more water than I would to a normal dram. So there you go. Booker's from Jim Beam. It's gone up in price. That part I'm not happy about. I move over to Caleb Pike. 4 Roses?
No, this time. And for those who are just joining us, the last, 3 shows? No, 2. Was it 2? 2. Okay. I had the same. I grabbed the wrong thing. So today, we're doing beer.
Beer o'clock.
And keeping in tradition with Caleb's picks, it's cheap. And we're doing not Bud Light or any of that stuff, but we're doing Independence Harbor Amber Ale. Forget the tea, drink the ale. This is, believe it or not, beer from Aldi. Aldi beer.
Where's Aldi?
I'm a big fan of booze from Aldi.
Really?
Aldi little boozes.
I thought I was going to get...
No. And by the way, there aren't many Aldis in the United States. There's more in the Midwest.
Bunch over here. Yeah. Well, man, Aldi is life over here. So good. Aldi and Trader Joe's. So anyway, that's my pick.
And it's independent. So
it
great
is.
for
boom.
Okay, good. It's a very American beer. Okay, and now
good stuff
for our host for today.
So this is, I'm still working through my whiskies from my 40th, which is what everyone bought me. So this is something, this is my favorite of all of them. This is amazing. Have you had this? I don't think it's gonna, no?
There you go.
This is the Nika whiskey. This is Japanese whiskey.
Oh yeah, I've had that. Not that particular one, but I've had Nika whiskey.
This is amazing. I've been having to really restrain myself from not just going at this because I need to have a night out with the guy that bought it for me on this. So I'm needing to save a little bit. But this stuff is, it's so different to Scottish whiskey, but there's so much going on in there. It's not like Speyside whiskies. It's not like island whiskies. It's completely its own thing, and it's incredible. So there we go.
Everybody raise your glasses or your bottle. And let's go ahead and have our first drink for Cameron Flask.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers. Oh, God dang, that's good. Okay, very nice. That's a good way to start off the holiday for us.
Okay.
I just have one aside here because I know this is always going to happen, and then I apologize. But when you talk about Nika whiskey, so I don't know the gentleman's name, but the grandfather of Japanese whiskey, he came to Scotland in the early 20th century, and he learned how to make whiskey in Scotland. And he met and went back to Japan with a Scottish woman. I believe she was from Glasgow. And he basically was the guy who started making all of the Suntory whiskeys. And then he left, and in 1933, he started Nika. And so he is the granddaddy of all Japanese whiskey, and he learned how to make it in the only place you should be learning how to make whiskey. Well, without an E, and that is in Scotland.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay.
So I never knew that, and whatever they taught him, they did a good job. It's good stuff.
It's the same guy that came up with Bitcoin. Okay, good. We're off to a good start here then. Let's go ahead and, yes, I've had Hibiki. Spang! I've had Hibiki. I've had a Hibiki 18-year in Japan, and it was mind-blowing. Okay, you're up. Take us into this thing, Ben. This is your topic this week, and I love it.
All right. This is my topic because this is kind of what I'm faced with on a day-to-day basis, more or less. It's traveling with gear to jobs. So I thought it would be great if the three of us talked about what we use, the kit that we take, the lights, the cameras, the lenses, what do we carry it in and how do we get it there? And it'd be great for any of you guys watching to chime in, and any tips that you've got for us would be very much appreciated. So this is kind of the kit that I use and travel with all the time, and I've kind of developed a little method for getting that through the airports without cameras and lenses getting taken off me. So I thought we'd go through that. So I thought that maybe we'd start off with kind of a typical shoot being something like a B-roll and interview kind of job. That tends to be my sort of bread and butter. I don't know about you, Jem, and I know you're kind of mainly in the back cave these days, Caleb, but from when you were traveling more and traveling with kit. So what was your kind of go-to grab bag full of stuff? What was always with you when you went on the road?
I guess I could phrase it like this. If I was still doing freelance and I did the exact same thing, just hundreds and hundreds of interviews, that was like, 90% of what we did. If I was doing it these days, for cameras, we usually had two of the exact same model and make. So for a long time, I used GH4s, C100s, similar to Jem, and probably something small form factor like that, or maybe at the most 2 FS5s. I think I'd own an FS5. That camera just seems super solid. For lighting, I think what I would do, and I saw this on another channel, I'll have to recall it later, but take a flex light. Super durable. There's a lot of cheap flexible lights. That one's not going to die on you, right? Yep, there it is. And I'm going to take one of those. I'm going to get one of the quick open soft boxes for Bowens. So stay with me on this. A Bowen softbox that pops open or breaks down very small. And then I'm going to clip that light inside of the softbox. So your overall footprint for packing is like nothing. You can wrap the light around the collapsed softbox. You know, the standard Manfrotto, whatever the heck they are, packed down, or the impact stands that are like, you know, whatever, 14 inches or something. And a solid set of sticks that are going to be smaller. Usually we lock everything off, so something doesn't have to be super insane for that. Audio is usually lavs, and if I really like to get some kind of shotgun in there if possible. So another stand with a carbon fiber boom. Usually we'd send the boom up at a pretty significant angle so that we could, you know, keep that weight under control on a smaller stand. But yeah, a good lav, which is, you know, a good wireless system, which is easy to find these days. And a couple of supporting lights like the Aperture M9s these days. I mean, man, everything's USB powered. So like the Aperture, I'd probably take an M9 or two and the F7 from Aperture. All of it's USB, and then just USB batteries. And that's about it.
Okay. Jem. So same thing. So you are traveling a lot at the moment.
A lot, yeah.
Similar sort of level to me of flights every month. So what are you taking? Because I mean, you're doing a lot of training work at the moment, aren't you? So presumably you've actually got access to kit where you're going, or are you taking everything with you?
It's a mixed bag depending on what the project is. I would say actually it depends on the time of year too, because I could be traveling for the first 6 months of a year or second 6 months, and 80 or 90% of that could be production work, and only 10 or 20% could be training or education. And then it can flip depending on when things are happening. So for me, it's every job is different. And if I'm going to be bringing cameras, then Caleb has acknowledged that, you know, having 2 matching cameras for what I'm doing definitely is a big deal. So it used to be 2 C100 Mark 1s. You know, it's now either a couple of FS7 series cameras, a couple of C300 Mark 2s, a couple of C200s. Those are the cameras that I'm using on a pretty regular basis. I'm also sort of on the fence right now because I do create now regular content for my channel again. And I'm deciding whether or not I'm going to keep this X-T3 from Fujifilm, because having a mirrorless camera that sort of ticks off pretty much all of the boxes that I'm looking for right now in a mirrorless sort of fits into that X-T3. I'm not in any way opposed to full frame. I mean, I started moving into what we're doing nowadays by moving from EX1s and other cameras with 35mm lens adapters to full frame 5D Mark II. But I am really happy with Super 35mm as a you know, sensor size. And that X-T3 has a mic jack, it has a headphone jack, it has log, you know, it has 10-bit out of the camera, and the battery life is kind of okay. It's not amazing. I'm just getting a question in the, you know, in the chat. But I'm really happy with the image, and I'm really surprised by how good the autofocus is. And it's incredibly small to travel with. And it's my preferred camera system for stills as well. So I'm really kind of, you know, yeah, so there you go. But yeah, so I would say, as Caleb is saying, you kind of have to treat the batteries in there like you kind of have to treat the A7 series probably. You know, it's like you got to have, you know, it's like a day's worth of batteries isn't 2 or 3 batteries, it's 5 or 6 batteries, you know, conservatively. So you just realize that. And I'm not interested in having all those other, you know, bits and bobs and like extra things. I'm seeing these ridiculous things happening now with the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, where because of the battery life is so crappy that people are putting extra things on top. It kind of defeats, you know. So, okay, so that's camera wise. Now, my kit has to go into something each time. So I kind of scale up and down depending on what I'm doing. I tend to use, sorry, I'm leaning down. I tend to use Tenba product at the time. This is the little backpack that I use, which was originally designed for GoPros not really. It's just like they had inserts in there for GoPros. It's a fantastic bag. I can fit a lot of stuff in there, but then I have a larger version of their shootout backpack. So I kind of scale depending on, and then I have a smaller rolling roadie case if I'm going to be on a puddle jumper. I have a larger rolling case if I'm going to be on a larger plane. And that's where my cameras and lenses and stuff go. And then from an audio standpoint, for the bigger cameras, I've pretty much settled on the UWP series from Sony. And I really like it because this particular unit is a dual channel receiver. So I can have 2 packs and I can feed 2 lavs to 1 receiver. If it's Sony, I have the little SMAD thing that lets me go right into the multi-shoe. So if I'm using a Sony camera, I can go right into that. But it comes with the XLR cables as well, so I can plug that into any camera system. If I'm going DSLR, or I'm going, mirrorless, sometimes I'll use the Rode Filmmaker kit, which I like and is very cost effective. It just have to be aware of the fact that it's not a standard frequency-based system, so you don't get the same range. And it's also 2.4 gigahertz, so you do have the potentiality of having some interference and things like that.
But it's legal in 2 years.
It is, and you don't know about those other frequency ranges, and some of them do become illegal, and some of them are phased out. So, and they're also sometimes illegal depending on where you're going in the world. So it might be illegal here in the States, but it might be illegal in Europe somewhere. Okay, this is going to be a little bit the standard Westcott, the Westcott sound that you get from Velcro. So, you have the new Westcott system, which has this beefier connector here. Yes, I did just hit myself in the head. And it's great, and that's the RGBW, and they're using that new connector and that new dimmer for all of their lines. But I almost always minimally travel with the bicolor 1x1. And I have a P-tap cable for this that goes right into the dimmer. And it's one of those Switchtronics ones. It looks like the Sony BP batteries that go into some of their bigger cameras. But it has a P-tap, and it's a 96 watt hour, and it takes up almost no room. So I carry that with me all of the time. And then I don't have it in front of me, I don't think, but I think I've talked about it enough. I always carry, I carry the DP kit a lot, which is the 4x4 frame that I designed with Westcott. But I always carry a Matthews 6-foot by 6-foot light grid cloth, silent light grid cloth with me. And then that means I can take a couple of those stands that Caleb was talking about, those little compact light stands. Sometimes I call them nano stands. If I can, I'll put them on C stands, and I'll just stretch it between the two. And you can just look at my channel and you'll see episodes where I use it a lot. But you can get those little BOA bags from Matthews, which are those, they look like sausages, and you can basically wrap them around those smaller stands to give them some weight. And those are pretty cool. And then I think another key thing for me is that I travel with mini grip heads and mini Mathellini clamps from Matthews. And I use pouches for everything that I travel with. So this has a focus monitor from Small HD, which I always have now. I always travel with charts. This has the little NT55 mic, which I think is sort of a hidden gem from, no pun intended, from Rode. And why this is such a great mic is this is a cardioid pickup pattern. And so most mics that are hyper or super cardioid have a tail in the back, and they pick up stuff. So when you're inside and you're booming somebody, you're picking up the HVAC system and all the crap that's up in the ceiling area. And so this doesn't have that tail, so you have a much quieter pickup in terms of that. It's a little bit of a broader pickup in the front, but I really love that. And when you're doing an interview with 2 people, it's broad enough that if you position it the right way, you can usually pick up 2 people within the lobe, that secondary pickup. So I think that NT55 is pretty cool. And then I have little pieces of grip and stuff. We could go on and on and on and on. I mean, when small crew, you know, that's definitely, I have these little pouches in here. This is one that has all of these little grip things. This will be the last one that I'll show you guys, and then I'll get over to Ben. So I love the Matthews Infinity Arm and the kit from there, but I've been building these out for a long time, and they're basically just a ball mount with a stud, 1/4-20 on one side, 3/8 16 on the other, and then these little nano clamps. And I use these all of the time to just put lights and microphones and all kinds of things wherever I want them to be. Generally what I'll do, this one's not actually lined, is I'll line the inside with the softer part of Velcro, because they're really industrial side, so that when I pinch onto things, it doesn't leave a mark. And hopefully that makes sense. And the stands I use when I travel are the the nano stands, or the compact light stands. I have them from Manfrotto. I have them from Westcott. I have them from Dado Lights. But you know, the problem is that they're just not heavy enough for most of the kit. So what I'll do is I'll usually, pardon me, I'll rent C-stands if I get to a location, and sandbags, because those are so cheap. And you can usually find, in the United States, you can find photographers also who are local who have C-stands and stuff. It's harder sometimes. Great Britain, I find that it's hard to find C-stands in the quantity that you here in the States.
Yes.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then,
well, I guess mine's kind of pretty similar to yours. I think in exactly the same way. I have pouches just full of stuff, sound kit. I tend to try and travel with, depends on the airline, which I'm going to come on to in the next little bit. But so I also have the Timber backpack.
Yep, I have that one.
So this is the middle-sized one of those. They do 3. I nearly bought the big one, and the reason I didn't was because this one looks small when you're going through security at airports.
Yep.
And I've never once been busted for it.
Same exact one I have.
The things with, right. So it's the 24, I think.
24. Yep. Shootout 24.
So I love it, except for things like these side panels here. See the zips? They don't close all the way to the end. There's no parking garage for the zips and
yes,
water
I know.
gets in. Other than that, it's brilliant, and the way that it carries the weight. So this, I flew with this on Monday, and this had in a C200 with the screen, although not the arm that it goes on. It had batteries, it had hard drives, it had an A7S, it had a 7200, a 2470, a 1635, and a Sigma 35. All in that, and my MacBook Pro, and all the chargers for that. So that's kind of amazing. I even put a little extra strap round just in case the zip goes and everything I own gets killed in one. That's always my kind of carry on. The reason I chose this was I did a lot of measuring and asking around on forums. This actually fits under the seat in front, so it is never going to get taken. So, and it also means that in the airport, I'm more relaxed because I'm not having to get on there first to get the overhead bin space and all of that stuff, because I know it's going to fit under the seat in front. And then we mentioned this in the best investments episode we did. This is my Marmot kind of haul bag, right? So this thing, all those pouches that we were just talking about, they'll go in here along with my clothes and my tripod, my Miller DS10, which is over there. If you take the head off and you can wrap that all fits in there. So I can get that down to 23, 24 kilos normally, which airlines are fine with. That tends to be in Europe about the standard. The job I'm going on next week, I'm going to have a Peli case as well, because there's just so much gear, and I'll split it around, and I'm going to need to take a gimbal as well. But normally I can get away with just those 2 bags, which is pretty amazing. It is really like a TARDIS, those 2 things. So that's kind of it, and that takes it on to, I mean, generally the stuff I'm taking around, it's very similar to you. I use the Triad Orbit system with all their little clamps and their little connectors, because I find that really quick when you're on location, and their clamps are really good. They've got that nice medical rubber on the inside of them that doesn't leave any trace. So, but very similar. I just have little pouches full of stuff. And
we have go on. No, go ahead. No, I just see a couple of good questions, but keep going, and then I'll go back to them for sure.
All right. Well, I was going to just go on to then talking about how we get this stuff from A to B. And it'd be interesting because I think it's quite different in the US and in Europe in terms of how you play the airline game, really, in terms of how you're getting this stuff without having to incur enormous charges, and even worse, getting the stuff taken off you and thrown in the hold when it's not in Peli cases.
Yep.
So strategies for that. So going back to Caleb, have you come across this?
You know,
Had to deal with it.
Yeah, most of the stuff I did here in the Midwest, there was so much work in the local area. We just did stuff locally. When we did fly, it was pretty straightforward. I mean, Southwest whenever possible. You know, it's cheaper bags that way, better experience. And then I would just check a big old honking, case with light stands. You know, because you can get like a rifle case and put a couple C stands and some,
golf case too. The golf ones we use sometimes.
So we just chuck all the passive stuff that can handle a little bit of a beating in there, and then either a 1650 Pelican case where it's like it could overhead, or backpacks with camera, batteries, lenses, and just that's all we did. Nothing too crazy, but we never did any like massive gigs elsewhere. Some of the bigger stuff, like Jem said, you rent because there's rental houses everywhere.
Yeah.
And with not Skillshare. What's that? What is it?
Kit Split. Well, we have Kit Split.
No,
what else is
that's
there?
one of them. That's one of them. Share Grid. Is that it?
Yes, I think it's Share Grid.
Okay. Companies. I mean, that stuff's amazing to have some gear waiting for you on the cheap somewhere. That's great.
It's like the Uber of equipment rental. That sounds ridiculous,
but
exactly. It really
totally
is
true. It really, that's perfectly describes it.
Yeah, I think that's changed a lot now. I mean, the only problem that I have, which is probably a similar problem that everybody who travels has, is when I'm traveling for professional work, can I rely upon that person? And if I'm in a smaller market, I have to rely upon them.
Yeah.
But if I'm in a larger market, I'm probably going to say worst case scenario is I can go to a rental house.
Well, this is something else that'd be great to talk about is, do you guys travel with what you like? For instance, whenever we went somewhere and we were renting, I still always brought a camera. Like there was always a GH4 and enough of a lens or lenses to get me through
100%.
Even if we were renting everything.
Yeah. There's almost no excuse now.
No. And one further, that I always travel with enough that even if one of those bits of kit goes down, I can still do the job. Because the nature of the work that I'm doing at the moment, and there's all this oil stuff, which I'm supposed to be in Norway this week, but that's kind of been knocked forward by 2 weeks. So for that job, you go out onto an oil rig, that's a 2-hour helicopter flight into the middle of nothing. You can't just go get that sorted out. So you have to have redundancy in everything. And that's just been a habit thing anyway, because when I'm in the UK, I'm in the Lake District, there aren't any rental houses in the Lake District. You're a 2 hours drive away. And I find it harder if you've not got a relationship with that rental house, getting your first rental out of them. That's hard work. There's a lot of paperwork involved, a lot of evidence stuff. So I think really it's always been to travel with enough stuff that you've got a little bit of redundancy. It might not be that it's as good a quality as what you'd have shot it on, but there's always a way of doing it. And also when I'm packing stuff, I tend to do little setups, actually rig stuff out when I'm packing to make sure that everything works, number one, and two, that I've got everything, because it's so easy to forget. And the other thing I was going to ask both of you about is that there's this system which I saw, I can't remember who it was that was talking about it, but it uses RFID tags. So you put one on every bit of your kit, and then you have little spreadsheets with all your gear. So you say that if it's a flyaway job, it's a one-man job, that everything's there, and you scan your bag and it goes, oh, you've forgotten your batteries, or you've forgotten your microphone, or whatever it is, because everything's in there and listed. And it's not that expensive. It was about, I don't know, £200, so like $250, something like that, for a pack of, I don't know how many, like 50. I can't remember what the product's called. If anyone knows, do please comment, because I've been trying to rack my brain to remember what it was called.
That sounds amazing.
I would love that.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
We're right now going through and getting everything Like we have gear insurance and all that good stuff.
Yep.
But I've put off this project for a while of like, what all is down here? What all is piled away in the studio? So now that I have an employee, that's getting done. And something like that would be incredible.
Right.
That kind of stuff to keep track of things coming and going, and kind of different application, I guess. But no, that's really interesting. I've never heard of that. I've heard of like the tile stuff, but that's not really anything like that. You're not scanning it. It's just where's my keys or whatever.
And I can't remember if it was a dedicated scanner or if it was your telephone that you used. And then the thing, it told, so you could have these different kit lists for different types of jobs, and it would just highlight. It would just scream at you, no, you've not got this. So, and also for me, kind of being split across 2 countries, and I have gear that lives in both places, and I travel. Some stuff stays with me all the time. Some stuff lives in the UK. Some stuff lives here. So it would be incredibly useful, just to keep tabs on where stuff is. So we'll dig it out, find out what it is.
I just want to say, Dutch video shooter. The reason it looks like I'm drooling is because you were shooting a seminar with Christopher Doyle, you bastard. I wish I was there in Poland while you were doing that. I'm sure that we all wish we were in Poland.
Oh man, this is the first year I've missed, and I'm so sorry, Dutch video shooter, because I know you kind of got in touch and we were hoping to be beers.
Okay,
so
well, so I would say we're starting to get into this. You know, how do you travel with this? I don't generally do a carnet where you write everything down and you go through. I do have insurance. That's not something I've done. I also don't travel internationally that much, but every single time I do, I question whether or not I should. But I will say there's a question about how, you know, it says taking your stuff out at the airport can be annoying. It can be, and it's getting worse here in the States. If anything's larger than the cell phone that's electronic, you have to take it out. The secret are the pouches. And so I have a system now, which is that when I get to, you know, the conveyor belts, I take out 4 trays, because I generally have 1 rolling bag, 1 backpack, and then I have to do, you know, whatever else has to go into the bin, my coat and things like that, sneakers if they have to be taken off. Sometimes yes, sometimes not. One of these days I'll get TSA pre, but that's a whole other thing. So so what I do is I just set up 4 of them, and I have my laptop and my Kindle ready, and I just dump those into one. I take my jacket and all my other crap and dump it into one, and then I basically separate, and I have a tray and then a bag and then a tray and a bag. And I take out all the pouches from one bag and dump them in one tray, take all of the pouches from the other bag, dump it in the other tray, and I just line them up, and I'm like a machine, and I just send that through, and it has changed everything to have pouches. And then when they get on the other side, occasionally they'll pull the bag, but I'm starting to learn stupid things like if I take the X bracket out for the 1x1 flex light, which holds it, then they generally won't pull the bag because they see this piece of metal and they just need to check it out. So I'm just getting smarter about what those things are that I take out. And it goes, just as another tip, I usually always put in my suitcase an extra bag, because sometimes when they get on the other side, I can pack a little bag like this flat. And for instance, this may be or may not be in my rolling case, but I always have a reflector case that usually has a reflector, but then I also store my cables inside of here because it's the perfect size. So I put XLR cables inside of here. I put, you know, HDMI and SDI cables inside of here. And usually, just so that I have it on the other side, I usually stick a mini grip head and a mini Mathellini clamp in here as well, because then I have something to hold that reflector up. And it's that whole mentality that we were talking about, that when you get to the other side, you have to be able to get something. So you have to have everything to allow you to capture pictures and deal with those pictures has to go into your overhead or under your seat. And then if you're going to check another bag, it has to be something that's just going to help you do that job more easily. Like there has to be a couple of zoom lenses with you that are in the overhead or under your seat. I might put other lenses into an air case from Tenba, which is sort of like a soft, hard version of a Pelican case. Like it's soft on the outside, but it's just as sturdy to jump on in terms of, it's just lighter weight. So like I have two of those, and they're 19 pounds empty. So that gives me 31 pounds for each case. And if you travel a lot, stay with the same airline as much as you can, because once you get status, then I get 2 bags free. And, if something's 53 or 54 pounds and you have status,
they don't care.
They don't give they don't care. But if you don't have status and you're all the way in the back of the plane and all of that stuff, then they care. And then they're going to make you sit there and move crap from one bag to the other and all that embarrassing stuff that has to happen. Has TSA ever actually checked the power rating on any of your batteries? They have not, but depending on the airport that you go through, the agents are more or less savvy to production. So they know what they're doing in LA. You go through Burbank, you go through LAX, they are used to seeing video production equipment all of the time. If you go through, an airport in Oklahoma, or you go through a small airport in a small town in Europe, maybe not as much, but they do have a guide and they do know what those things. TSA allowed me to carry an Anton Bauer battery. I wonder where that is. In the States, I haven't had any problem with that. Currently, we're 150 watt hours max. Generally, if you travel internationally, you can't have anything that's over 100, which usually means that you're
100's max. Europe's 100 max.
Yeah, but there are some really smart solutions from more than one company now where you can travel with basically 2 96 watt hour batteries and then you smack them together and you basically get close to a 200 watt hour battery when you get to the other side. So there you go. Okay, so back to Caleb. Caleb, when you're doing some of your local productions, because I know that you do still stuff with some of the people that you work with and you're testing equipment and things like that, is that sort of like you're bringing half your stuff and then the other person's bringing the other stuff, or because most of the stuff's done now in the studio, but what's that mix like nowadays?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, usually I always bring the same stuff. I love porta brace stuff, bag wise.
Oh, I love them.
Yeah, they're expensive, but it's literally there's a wonderful gentleman or woman stitching your bag out of some legit stuff. So they have these soft, hard, like you were talking about. They're like soft and you can bend the walls of the bag, but you can put like stand on them at the same time. The walls are super tough. So I love their cargo cases. It's one of the cheapest and the best that they make, the cargo cases. There's 2 sizes or 3 sizes. And they hold, cameras. You can put a 300D in there from aperture with accessories. So I usually always bring some kind of flexible light, a couple GH5 and 5S. I feel like that covers a huge range of stuff. I try to get a C-stand as much as possible. The same old. Always, like you said, a chart. I always now bring that video checker, which is just amazing. It's incredible. Yeah, you got your big boy checker.
I have the big one on the passport.
Yeah, the passport. I have the passport too.
That's what I meant. The passport. My bad. Yeah, the little tiny guy that fits in your back pocket.
Yeah, hard case. Yeah, the hard plastic one. They're all great, and I carry a gray card all the time because I just find it exposing for log, nowadays. So I just have an 18%. I mean, these things are like $7-10, and I just carry those.
So what do you guys do for media? Sorry, just kind of jumping in there, but
no, that's a good question. Okay, so I've just done this so I know we talked about when we were talking about storage and all of that stuff a few weeks ago. So I have this, which goes in hold luggage, which contains any copies of drives that are on that job. So that has, I know that's got 3 or 4 small 2.5-inch drives in, and that's a Nanook Nano case that someone gave me at a trade show, but it's perfect size for that. If you fit 4 in and that you wedge them, they don't move. And then I have the duplicates travel with me. So that's that. And then for cards, they're fine. That Timber bag has a really nice little wallet that comes with it. It just has a really long draw cord or elasticated cord that can just stay in the bag and you never lose that. But for drives, so 1 with me, 1 underneath, and that seems to be about as good as you can do unless you're posting stuff back ahead of flying back.
So basically, if the plane separates, you just want to make sure that those two parts of the plane go to two different places.
I figure if one of those, like neither of those drives are getting to the destination, I don't give a shit. It's going to be the least of my worries about the driver or my client.
Episode 1 of Lost starts and Ben's sitting on the tail of the plane editing a video. Oh, I still have it.
That's amazing. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
For media, that's it.
Yeah. I'm always doing double slot recording if the camera system allows me to. So that's a big deal. Because if it's just me or I'm going somewhere and we don't really have a crew, then, I'm going to be the one who's handling all the data wrangling. And yes, his novel lapel mic position. It's not so novel. I mean, it's an omnidirectional mic, so pointing it down is a lot smarter than pointing it down up most of the time, because get rid of those pops and things like that. Just seeing that little comment. So yeah, so that's, I mean, and then for me, I'm using a lot of USB-C, Thunderbolt 3 drives now. These new small 2 terabyte RAIDs. I have one that I travel with all the time from Glyph, and it's just a beast. I mean, it's super fast. It's great. But I don't always use those. I mean, I usually carry in a pouch, different hard drives. And I've been using, some drives now that are USB-C. They're not super fast, but if I'm working on a project that's UHD 4K, but at a lower data rate, let's say 150 megabits per second, and I'm finishing in the timeline at 1080, that's not really an issue. So I just have to sort of match the sort of, the drive to, or the drives to what I'm doing. So yeah, that's all I got for you on the storage thing. How about you, Caleb? Right now, you're kind of like in RAID land, and you've got like the big brain. You're in like the TARDIS over there, the Midwestern TARDIS over there. That we have no idea how big or small it is, but it just seems to be like every single time we see you, there's another part to that space. And it might be like a 3x3 space, but it just seems to go on forever and ever.
No. He's in YouTube studio, and this is just, it's all green screen, the whole thing.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. Yeah.
Bedroom. I don't have any kids or family.
Right.
Not wearing any clothes right now, but somehow you see me with clothes.
That's the future, remember, from last week. So yeah, so what are you doing for when you're not? Is it all RAID now, or is there sort of
there's the studio stuff, which is just absurd. But for travel, which doesn't happen again often, recently I just picked up some more of these Angel Bird PKT drives.
Golden boy with this. Oh, excuse me. I thought I was fancy with my Glyph drives. Sorry. Are those RAID? Are those 2 terabyte?
Nope.
No, those are single. Okay, so yeah.
These are 512s. I do have a 1 terabyte. But what's nice is you don't need the RAID with these because they're so fast. Like the one I have is like a gigabyte a second. It's stupid fast. But they're tiny. I mean, this is an iPhone 7. See if I can hold those both up there.
Holy moly.
So that's not a Plus phone. That's an iPhone 7.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a beer bottle.
Wow.
They're Wait, so
small.
Basically that would be about the same size as a Glencairn glass.
Yeah.
Is what I would say.
It's the thickness of my iPhone.
Yeah.
Here's an even better one. There's a bottle cap.
This is ridiculous. We're going down a rabbit hole here. I love
USB-C or 3 point whatever Gen 2 fastest whatever. Really well made.
Can you blow some air into that, Angel, just for a second? Just go like this. Yeah, because somebody made a video game cartridge reference. So just in case it's not seated perfect. Okay, good. All right.
So anyway, you can plug this directly into a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera if that's your jam. So anyway, 2 of these and just copying the footage over, to both takes like 0 time at all. And they're so small. If you're not, if you need a bunch of space and you're shooting on, Canon RAW C200 or whatever, and your pockets aren't lined with diamonds, then this is another good option I've recently been playing with. These cheaper Samsung.
You mean if you don't have diamonds for the Angel Bird ones? Yeah, the Samsungs are nice.
Right, like this is only like a terabyte. These two right here.
Those Angel Dust drives.
If you're doing RAW,
somebody calls them Angel Dust drives.
Angel Bird, yeah. But these T5s are pretty solid.
Yeah.
Those are cool. I've used those.
Yeah, those are great.
The Blackmagic Pocket camera, that's what they're kind of.
And SanDisk makes some little drives like that too. They're odd shape, but yeah.
Or just go real cheap and just buy SSDs and put them in these crappy Adamus plasticky things.
Yep.
If you use their recorders, they'll work great. But you can get a USB-C SATA adapter and just plug these directly into your machine. Yep. I've also used Velcro in the past and just stuck them together, plugged both in, and created a RAID, for just one trip or whatever. So you don't have to go nuts. Yeah, there you go. Boom.
Nice. Good. Is it? I don't know how to pronounce. Is it Shimon? Shimon? No problem on the mic thing, by the way. That was, the first time I saw a mic pointed down, a lavalier or a lapel mic, I didn't have any idea why that would be that way. So no worries. Baron retracted an Angel Dust comment. I think this is getting a little out of hand here. Third Coast Crypto. Third Coast Crypto was making a comment when you blew into it as if Angel Dust was coming out of it. I guess it's not an angel. It's getting so bad. It's over. Stop. Yeah, we're done.
Don't even acknowledge it. Just move on.
No, it's over. Okay, so we are now at that point where it is 45 past the hour. We're going into our last 14 or 15 minutes. So I'm going to pass it back over to Ben, and let's get into some, Baron, I am still drinking too. Let's get into some questions and find out what you guys, maybe Caleb, you are a great moderator. Go back in time and see if there's any that we should get into. And then we're inviting everybody to actually throw some questions up right now as well. So
I'll go to one that before we even started that was, could you manage a complete carry-on kit? See, the US and the Europe are quite different on carry-on and what you can and can't do with that. I think you were talking about 2 bags, and some islands you can, but I reckon I could do a kit.
I have a video that hasn't come up or hasn't been released, but two ways to do carry-on. One with that Pelican case. It's unbelievably heavy though, so that's it's right on that line, and then a backpack setup. It's possible, but you gotta shoot like on an A6500 or something tiny. If you care about rigging, like the kits I talked about or will talk about involve like a full-on legit interview setup. So not using a window. It's like diffusion, good source, like multiple lights, a little bit of everything. But if you can skimp on some of that, then you can do wonders, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, on a plane here in the States, I can do generally 1 carry-on and 1 personal item. The big carriers are a little more lenient than the smaller ones, and they're getting stricter. I just saw something the other day when I flew into PDX, where the maximum weight now in pounds is 40 pounds for the bag instead of 50 for your checked luggage. So that's now come down. It used to be 75 in this country. It went down to 50 as the standard. Now it's down to 40. Some of the smaller carriers in Europe are the same. They have obviously, they're odd weights. So we'll travel from the US to there, and then there'll be a different weight classification when we're traveling around Europe, which makes it really, really tricky. I just want to answer one question from a Dutch video shooter, which is having to do with tripods. It depends what kind of camera I'm bringing. I have small, collapsible tripods with small video heads, little Benro heads, if I'm taking something like a mirrorless camera with me or a DSLR. If I am taking larger cameras. I tend to rent in the location that I'm going to. If I have to travel, then I have to know that that's another case, and then I have a hard tripod case that I put stuff into. But trust me, it's not just my tripod that's going in there. I'm putting light stands in there. I'm putting whatever the hell I can get in there for up to whatever that weight is that I can get. So if it's 50 pounds, I'm at like 49 point, wherever I can be to get as much kit inside of there as I can. Those, I will say that at least in this country, there's so many people, especially middle-aged white businessmen who travel with golf equipment. And I mean that, it's true. So you don't see a lot of other people traveling with golf equipment. But those hard golf rolling cases are sort of just accepted. So if you go up and you check one of those, there's no guarantee when you travel with them. But that is something that we have used a lot in certain situations to get equipment from one place to the other. Ben?
And it goes back as well to that whole thing about sticking with an airline or an airline group. Because then if you're in that family of airlines, and you've got any kind of status, and generally you can get status pretty quickly. Sometimes it's on legs, sometimes it's on dollars spent. But figure it out. Work out where you need to be traveling the most, which airline's going to work best for that, and then just get in the loyalty program. Even if you think you're doing just one flight, get in the loyalty program, because you never know. If you then just every point counts. But also back to the tripods thing, this Marmot bag, again, that I had before, that big old tripod stripped down with the head off it, fits in there perfectly.
Does that have wheels, Ben? That has wheels, right?
Yeah.
Good.
And it stands on its end, which is massive.
That's right, huge. Now let's get into Third Coast Crypto. After his original Angel Dust comment, he's now asking about carbon fiber, which I think is a legit question here. Is carbon fiber really worth the extra cost over aluminum? I'm going to answer that very simply. It is a weight savings. But it depends on the climate in which you're working with. And a lot of people don't talk about this with carbon fiber versus aluminum. But have you ever gone outside in cold weather with an aluminum tripod or aluminum equipment? I mean, if you touch it, it's colder than outside. It's just ice cold. And the nice thing about carbon fiber, it doesn't get as cold as aluminum does. So I would say that if you're in cold climates a lot, that may also be one thing that you have to consider in terms of carbon fiber versus aluminum that goes beyond just the weight savings and the perceived strength of it. Carbon fiber is stronger, but you do have to understand that when you're using sticks and they're carbon fiber, they tend to bend more actually than aluminum. Aluminum is sturdier. Am I wrong about that? I might be right about that.
You're totally right. My wife did stills interior stuff with long shutter, and she'd been using an aluminum tripod. And that one day she wanted, or I gave her a little, carbon fiber one. And so many of her shots were wrecked because she just standing there, like moving, away from the camera, the walking on the floor, like threw off her shutter,
Weight stable. That's the other thing. There is something to that. Yeah. I mean, my tripod, the sticks are carbon, but this is still ridiculously heavy because the head weighs a ton on it. So and it would be even worse. And the older I get, the worse my back problems are. And it's getting to the point where it's really needs consideration with most things, that I pull my back probably 3 times a year to a point where I can't do anything the next day. So every little bit of weight saving that stops that happening. It's not so much the weight, it's just the way that you pick it up just in one odd movement and you throw something out. So I don't know. I'm not completely, everything has to be carbon, everything has to be the lightest possible, but for certain things like tripods particularly, because it makes quite a big difference to the weight. And that's still a very sturdy tripod, even with the carbon. It's still not a light thing. I
have to say something really important right now. This has to do with Miller carbon. This has to do with the Miller Solo legs. I love Miller fluid heads. They are, I've said this before, they're my favorite. But the Miller Solo head, the Miller Solo sticks, in their first position from closed, are way too skinny compared to other tripods that are out there. And
it's true.
I've told Miller, I need more people to tell Miller that if they own the solar, those are new. Those are coming in 2019. The solo legs, that we need to get that. I understand they have to redo the cast for it, but it's just way too skinny. And then the next one is like this, and it's redonkulous.
No,
okay.
The next one's okay. The angle of the next one's okay, but it's quite a fiddle to get it out to that.
Yeah.
I agree completely. It's the Achilles heel of that system. However, it's still just the motion on their heads is nicer than any tripod that I've used.
But you can always put it on different sticks if you want. Okay, so here we go. So Dutch video shooter, talk to them. So right now there's an energy happening, and this is like the family energy starting to occur. It's the 5 minutes to the hour mark, and I'm saying right now, I'm calling it as the host of host number 2, 3, 1. This is whatever. We are all hosts here, but look. I got our back right here, Caleb. Is what I'm saying.
You do,
and trust me,
you got my back.
And I'm right here. I got your back. I got my back. I got Ben sleeping.
It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm all up for finishing.
I know.
1. It's fine.
Okay, will you take us out, and I will make a video about my legs. Thank you very much. I don't know what that will be. Please don't send it to us with like a bit.ly link or anything like that. Caleb, last words here for today, because we're going to be back next week with a brand new topic, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Thanks to everyone who showed up. We've got some new faces. You guys are the rock bed of this community, which is just getting started. So you got front row seats. Love it.
Okay. To all of the friends that I have in the United States of America, they're not even watching this. Why the hell am I telling them this? Happy Thanksgiving to everybody who is out there in the US of A. If you're not celebrating, just understand that for me, this is my favorite holiday. Except for when family gets a little funky, which happens every once in a while. It's not about religion. It's not about politics. It's not about presents. It's about being with family and friends and having good food and good drink and just enjoying, hopefully, good conversation. So that's what I'm going to be doing for the next couple of days. I'm going to be enjoying my family and my friends, and hopefully not nursing. By the way, in the kit, just so you know, there's always Advil. There's always electrolytes. There's always all that other stuff when you're traveling too.
For your hangovers.
Which you do need. Well, I didn't say that. I just said you've got to have stuff in the kit. Ben, take us out.
Okay.
Do it.
All right. So I'd like to wish you both and all of my American friends a very happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
I wish all my European and everywhere else in the world friends a happy Thursday. And back here next week at the same time. Right?
Yeah.
Same time next week.
Same time next week.
6 Eastern, 11 p.m. in the UK and midnight in Central Europe.
Yes. On Wednesdays.
All right, that's it. On Wednesdays, every Wednesday. All right, thanks all for joining us. Good night,
guys.
And we'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Cheers.